Hello, my name's Osha. I like to talk about American presidents, and I'm continuing with my discussion in honor of Black History Month. Um, I'd done a first video in which I stated that America is no black man's El Dorado, and so this is the second part of it. Of course, I used El Dorado from the novella by Voltaire, the French philosopher, novelist Voltaire. El Dorado, of course, meaning sort of a paradise where there's so much wealth and everything is great. So I'm saying that, look, America is no black man's El Dorado. Lots of Nigerians who want to come to America, who want to, whether to study or to jackba. Jackba means to escape Nigeria and study abroad. Um, I'm using this video as information, knowledge, awareness, so that they can make more, well-informed decisions, and they can seek their uh, their opportunities in Nigeria. I know it appears that there are no opportunities for Nigerians, for young people in Nigeria right now, but they need to pay attention to what's going on in America. There's a lot of anti-immigrant hysteria now. You see, even American citizens are being killed because they are trying to protest the ICE raids. The ICE, raids, that's where, these ICE people, masked men, people in masks and, heavily armed, like soldiers, and they go and raid uh, uh, apparent illegal aliens and remove them from their homes, violating their due process rights in the 14th Amendment. And they deport them to any nation in the world. You don't want to be deported somewhere that you're going to be killed. There have been instances where people were deported. The recent, it was recently in the news that there were some females who were deported, taken from Mexico and deported somewhere, and they were found to have been beheaded, right? That they had been removed by ICE and federal agents and deported somewhere else to another nation, to one of these Latin American countries, and they were found to have been beheaded. You don't want to be in that situation, right? America is very violent now. It's always been a violent nation. Yes, and I know there's going to be that pushback that, well, I'm in America and I don't want other people to have the opportunities I have in America. You have to do everything in context, right? First of all, I'm an American citizen, right? Um, I'm an American citizen. I'm going to read you the 14th Amendment, which defines citizenship. And so, just to let you know that if you're coming from outside, from Nigeria, and you don't have papers, you want to come as an F1 student, which has been banned for now, I understand, or even a visitor or anything you want to do, uh, you don't have the protections that I have as an American citizen. And I'm here in America telling you that even though I'm an American citizen, one day, even though I was in my home, not committing any crime, in my home where I lived alone, people I couldn't see raided me, removed me naked, filed false charges against me, locked me up for 15 months, telling a lie, all false allegations, things, violating due process of the law, right? Last clauses of the 14th Amendment says, uh, no state shall deprive any person of the due process, of of the law. No, no, that's no state shall deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of the law. That's exactly what happened to me. I'm not supposed to be targeted. It continues. It says, nor shall it deny any person within its jurisdiction equal protection of the laws. So I'm supposed to be protected. I'm supposed to be equal to white Americans. I'm supposed to be a citizen. I'm in my home, and no one's supposed to come and harass me without an arrest warrant or probable cause. But that's exactly what happened. I was assaulted. These stitches, I have the permanent scars to prove it, right? Stitches where I was shot by the police in the head, with a taser dart. I was lucky it was not a bullet. because the police officer who shot me was saying, he was a racist who used epithets on me. He was saying that his intention was to shoot me with his Glock, right, to kill me. He called me an animal, used epithets. So just to let you know, and I'm a law-abiding American citizen. As of that day, I was an auditor working in the federal government, the Department of the Navy, holding a top secret TSSCI clearance. Never been arrested, never even been to a police station, right? Never, I was just, in my home, not committing any crime, but I was raided for no reason, based on lies, right? So I was denied, first of all, notice. So if they want to even come to my house for any reason, there's a false allegation. I'm supposed to have notice, have the right, the right, the opportunity, a hearing to be able to dispute the false accusation, right? And to have a fair judge, an impartial judge, an impartial tribunal. I was denied all of that. So that's due process, right? And if I, as an American citizen, I'm being denied due process, uh, people who aren't citizens, who aren't permanent residents, you bet they're being denied. They're going to be denied due process as well. So you're better off staying in Nigeria, where you have your family, right? You have your own agency, you have your autonomy, and Nigeria has tremendous resources. If look, Americans fought for everything, especially I'm a black person. There were black people before me. I've never fought for to anything. This is the first time I'm fighting, and I'm really fighting for my freedom, right? To assert my equal rights and my freedom, really. That's what it is, because my freedom's been taken from me. My property's been taken from me. Um, but I enjoyed things here as an American without having to fight for it. Black Americans fought for things. And just to let you know that, yes, um, due process and equal protection of the laws, it's supposed to apply to even non-citizens, anybody who's within the U.S. America's jurisdiction. You don't have to be an American citizen or a green card holder to have due process of law, but that's being shredded right now. That's being disregarded. People are being removed, abused, detained, locked up without due process of law, and some people are being killed, right? So you don't want to be in that situation. And again, my status, just in case for people who have a pushback, don't want to listen, I'm hoping Nigerians will listen, right? Because I do love Nigerians. I love Nigerians. I'm a Yoruba guy, and I grew up in Lagos. I loved it. I loved, I never imagined that I would spend most of my life in America. I just came to study, right? I didn't plan on staying, but some things just happened, right? Some things just happened. I ended up being a citizen, but again, I'm protected by the 14th Amendment. Let me remind us of the first portion of the 14th Amendment, right? It says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to its jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside, right? And no state shall make or enforce any laws. Uh, uh, no state shall make or enforce any laws which shall deny the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, right? So that's that's basically uh, a benefit that I have being an American citizen, which people who would be trying to come with an F1 as a foreigner, as a non-immigrant, or even an immigrant trying to get a visa, they don't have these the privileges and immunities of citizens, right? And even citizens have been denied due process right now. Again, I'm a citizen, my due process was denied. Of course, I get to be able to sue, right? But it's the person who has life that can, who has life, who has resources that can go to court and sue. So you could see, I done videos and I talked about, um, um, I'd reached the portion of the Jim Crow, right? So you see that even when laws are instituted, right, when laws are created to protect Americans, there's always that pushback. So America has always been a bipolar nation. So it's not when the laws are created that they are automatic that they automatically take effect. No, when Brown versus Board of Education overturned the Plessy versus Ferguson, which said separate was equal, desegregation was not automatic, right? It took another 20 to 30 years for desegregation, for Jim Crow laws to go away. It still took, it still required the 1964 Civil Rights Act, House Fair Housing Act of 1968, all under President Lyndon B. Johnson, right? For these to be implemented. He was our 36th president. I've done videos discussing LBJ extensively. So, and there's always that pushback. The school first went to in the South, Troy, Alabama, it didn't start to, it was predominantly white, and it didn't desegregate until the 1980s. I got there in the 1990s. I remember when I was going to the United States Embassy. It was called UCS, USCIS, I think, USIS, I think, United States Information Service. It was in at the United States Embassy in Lagos, around on Lagos Island. It was close to my school where I graduated from, King's College, Lagos. And, you know, they had advised, because I used to go there, you just register with them. You could get information on, how to study abroad, how to study in America. And they answer your questions, they let you use their resources. I don't know if they still have that service. Um, it's funny, even back then, they made us pay, we paid about $100, right, to join. It was a long time ago in the 90s. We paid about $100 just to register with them so we could use their resources. Um, so I recall that, you know, even then, they had told me about the school I first went to, Troy. They were the ones who suggested the school I went to, Troy. And they told me that, look, that the school didn't desegregate until the 80s, right? And that there were hardly black people there. And if they saw me, they would treat me well because they'd want to keep me. And so I went. It was the only school I applied to when I was coming to America. I went, I got admitted, and, I went, I did well, I graduated, right? And most of my classes, um, I was the only black person, black male, most of their classes I took there. Now, if you saw black people, maybe they were in sports, people who were doing sports, athletics, right? And so they combined. Um, and it was kind of interesting because there's a congressman that I liked very much. He wrote Double Trouble, so you should read it. Congressman John Lewis, and he used to march with Dr. Martin Luther King. He was born around Troy, Alabama, yeah, thereabouts. That school had banned him from even using their library. He wanted to attend there. They didn't, because it was segregated at that time, and they wouldn't let blacks come in. I know the school had created another branch in Montgomery, where they also use it for adult students, where they let black people go to, right? Because they didn't want their black students to integrate with their white students, right? And so that was the history back then. John Lewis marched. He got clubbed. He got beaten a lot. They used batons to break his head, his skull, and all that stuff. So Black Americans fought a lot. Not all of them. Um, my Black American friend claims that only 8% of Black Americans actually fought in the civil rights, marched in the civil rights, protested in the civil rights movement for equality. But at least it was the people that were here who did it. No Nigerians have participated in civil rights advocacy in America. So they just come, we come and just get the benefit of what at least 8% of them uh, advanced and struggled for, right? And, so I ended the earlier video by saying that, and even also for Nigerian Americans that are here, because there's this tension and acrimony between Nigerian Americans and the black community, right? Because Nigerian Americans, yes, they're being successful here, but they have to be very careful. What's the future of their children? There have been black Americans who were successful. Um, even sociologists who've analyzed the success rate of Nigerian Americans, they estimate that their grandchildren, their children, their grandchildren uh, will be just like Black Americans. They will no longer be successful academically, right? Because there's systemic and structural racism in America. And so you have to go and ask the people, talk to the people there, the Black Americans. When I talk to Black Americans, one of the first things that they tell me, and they assume that I wouldn't know, even though I know I've been educated. I did US history. I study critical race theory on my own, right? Apart from having a law degree. But every Black American who draws close to me, who assumes, well, who thinks that they like me enough, they've cultivated a decent enough relationship with me, they start to tell me about crabs in a barrel. Some will call it crabs in a bucket. And so they tell me to be cautious, not of white people. These are Black people telling me, but to be cautious of other Black people. And they've been programmed, right? Programmed to undermine and sabotage other Black people like them who want to rise, who are ambitious, who want to do well. So this is what, you Nigerians who are coming from abroad to come to Nigeria, America, this is what you're aspiring for. Right? You have to understand that there will be Black people uh, they're Black people that you're going to come in contact with. Excuse me, who've been cultivated over time through the structural racism that exists in 400 years, right? 400 years. It doesn't matter the pendular movement of back and forth. Excuse me. Excuse me, something in my throat. I'm dry throat. They've been conditioned to sabotage their communities. One of the first things that Black Americans will tell me, they've gotten close to me, they'll tell me, look, I should check that even though they were doing the bidding of a white supremacist cabal or superstructure or power block, that it was Black Americans who killed Malcolm X, right? They were the ones who pulled the trigger. And it was where before MLK was assassinated, there was a Black American who had been working undercover, reporting his movements. And there's a course I did, Harlem Renaissance. There's a book that I read. Was it called Cames or something? Shame. Can't remember. You know, this Black American guy who was envious of uh, Dr. Martin Luther King's success, and he sold him out. You know, so this is what you're coming into. You're coming into uh, a world that you didn't know in Nigeria. I didn't see myself as a Black person in Nigeria. I remember when I lived in Ikoyi one time, I had neighbors who were white. In fact, I brought that picture with me. Me and my sister, we were kids playing with a white girl. We must have been like 3 years old, 4 years old then, 4 or 5, yeah. And we're playing with a white girl and my sister. Our neighbor, I remember her name, Emma. We didn't, and I used to travel to England. The notion that even though we interacted with white people, but we were majority Black. Uh, our president was Black. Our ministers, our billionaires, our medical doctors, our lawyers were Black. Our CEOs. So it didn't. The thought of being a Black person and not a human being did not occur to us. It never even once struck our consciousness. And it takes time for us to adjust to it when we come to America, right? They try to force it, impose it on us that, okay, we're black people, not just human beings. We can't expect to be treated the way white people are treated, right? Right. So these are things that, that will, uh, that, that, black people would have to, that, they continue to grapple with. Again, you know, it took about 80 years, right? About 80 years of Jim Crow uh, for blacks to move in another direction in that pendular phenomena of race relations, right? There were about 80 years of Jim Crow in the South, not just the South, in the North as well. So even after Brown versus Board that overturned Jim Crow, that said, well, everything had to be integrated and blacks were to be treated equal. It still took about 20 to 30 years of resistance from white Americans, right? Not just in the South. You see, because America's always been a divided nation. It started out as a divided nation, right? It's always, I think it's a bipolar nation, and Americans love that bipolar. Of all the mental illnesses, Americans identify with bipolar the most, and that's because I guess the nation itself is bipolar. Even at the Declaration of Independence, right? At the Declaration of Independence, we were divided between loyalists, those who wanted to remain loyal to the British, and the rebels, those who wanted independence, right? The patriots, right? So we called those who wanted independence patriots. Those who wanted to remain loyal to Britain were the loyalists. And you see, it caused division even in the home. Benjamin Franklin, of course, Dr. Benjamin Franklin, the genius founding father, right? Who's on a $100 bill. It was, you know, he was a businessman, successful. I've done a video discussing him. His son had been governor of New Jersey, a royal governor of New Jersey. His son remained loyal to the king. And so America had to arrest his son. He was under house arrest, was locked up for a long time. Eventually, he escaped. He lived in England for the rest of his life in Britain. So you can see, while the father, became an American, you can see how the war divided a household, father and son. And it wasn't just him. There were our military, it divided our military, the little, the ragtag military we had. People know Benedict Arnold. He'd been an American hero, a general. Benedict Arnold, of course, sold America out. He thought he was doing the right thing, and he went on the British side because, we have to remember those we call the patriots, our founding fathers, were actually rebels. We were rebelling against England, right, Great Britain. So America's always been divided. And even after our independence, you see, we divided the nation into two. You see, by the time of the Missouri Compromise, there were 11 states that were free, right? Free states. They were anti-slavery. And then there were another 11 states, southern states, who were pro-slavery, right? So we've always been bipolar. And eventually we went to war over this in 1865, right? And Abraham Lincoln said, no, that we can't, no nation can survive divided, half free, another enslaved, right? No house can survive, divided. That's actually a quote from the Bible. That's what Jesus had said. It's in the Bible. So we've always been a divided nation, right? So that conflict has always been there. It's had that balance. Even our first political parties, right after the administration of our first president, who hated political parties, we divided into two political parties: the Federalists, led by Alexander Hamilton, and the Anti-Federalists, led by Thomas Jefferson and James Madison. So what I'm saying is, even today, as I'm saying that, well, there's this anti-immigrant hysteria, and it's a good idea for Nigerians to stay at home, right? So they're not um, their lives, their health. They don't put all any of this at risk, and they don't waste their money, right? We're seeing people wasting their money. As I woke up this morning, there was news of students, a Nigerian MBA student who died mysteriously, of an Indian student who died in America, all in America. Students are dying. Who is somebody killing them? Are people killing them? It's very difficult to investigate to be able to find out, right? So your health, our lives, there's nothing, where there's an environment where there's extreme hate, and America is a very violent nation. It's not like Nigeria where only the police have guns or armed robbers have guns. Everybody has guns because people have a right to bear arms, the Second Amendment. So these extremist groups have access to guns, dangerous weapons, and they can kill, uh, you know, immigrants, Nigerians that they don't want around them. Americans, they feel threatened. Many people suffer from severe mental disorders, and they're violent, they're paranoid, they always feel threatened, right? They always feel threatened by people, right? And there's this anti-immigrant hysteria. Yes, even though there's this anti-immigrant backlash, and it seems like half of America, hates immigrants, wants them out, wants them eliminated, and there's another half of Americans that's passionate about immigrants, wants immigrants to stay. That's America. But right now, the anti-immigrant sentiment is winning. But what I'm just appealing to Nigerians is that look, Nigerians have a lot going for them, right? They don't need America. America is a hyped up nation. Don't waste your money, right? Don't waste your money coming to because you want to come and study abroad, right? The world has changed. There's now internet. You can learn from internet, YouTube. You can learn all you want to. You can go and learn software if it's money you want. Look, if you weren't born rich, if you're not this video is not for children of Bola Tinubu, right? Of course, the children of Bola Tinubu, the president of Nigeria, or even former presidents, the children of Obasanjo, or the children of, even the children of MK Abiola, they can go anywhere they want to, right? Because advanced nations have programs where they want, they want wealthy people, the elite, to come in to their nations, right? They'll give them a different status. And whatever those people encounter, they'll always be black. And, they don't mind trading off some things, So the video is not for them. It's not for the children of Abacha. It's not for the children of Babangida, right? They could do whatever they want to. But there's some people who are middle class, upper middle class. Their parents struggle, put aside a lot of savings just to get their children to go and study abroad in America, get the dollars, the pounds, right? And they won't rip the a return on their investments, right? It's not a good, especially if they're looking for money, right? If you come from a wealthy home, or whatever, right? Money is not your thing. You're looking for some other form of self-actualization, right? So it's not. But if you're trying to come to America, jackpot, because you're trying to make money, you don't think you can make money. No, you've got it wrong, because Nigeria is going to boom. Right? I was a stockbroker, I was a financial advisor, an auditor, apart from being a lawyer, right? So I understand investments. Nigeria is going to boom. America has reached its saturation. We're in debt. We've got $38 trillion of debt. We're in debt. We've just been living on, well, we're the most powerful nation in the world. We're the number one nation. Look, China's overtaken America. There are other nations as well. And we've spent so much on violence, so you see how the desperate move America made going to invade Venezuela and kidnapping their president. That was a desperate move. It shows you that, look, something's not right, right? America has been living on tremendous credit, a tremendous amount of credit, right? So don't waste your money. Don't waste your time, right? I'm in America. I'm doing these videos in spite of all. It's a very wasteful nation. In spite of all the degrees I've garnered, right? I should be using my knowledge to working somewhere, earning money. But America is so wasteful. They have this crooked uh, judges and law enforcement who are on the dole, because that's what these public servants in Maryland, they're welfare recipients, right? It's taxpayer money they're using. They're the biggest recipients of welfare. And they're wasting somebody like me. I left, they took me from a six-figure paying job. I didn't need to be doing that. I could have been earning far more in the private sector. I had my businesses I had started in Nigeria. I put it on hold because I came to say thank you to a federal government. To me, America, I've been fortunate. Not everybody is lucky. America, I was lucky to what America did for me, right? I've been lucky. And so I felt I owed America to say thank you. And, what they gave me, the opportunity they gave me in government, especially since I was interested in government in Nigeria, that was my goal. I ended up being invited to work in the US federal government to be a future senior leader of the US Department of Defense in the most elite civilian program, right? So my opportunity was different, right? So that's why I was doing what it was, that I was doing, making the sacrifices I was making. But there are these staged, I was framed up by racist cops, like what I've been trying to explain. The racist white cops raided me, framed me up, and it's been 3 years. They've taken 3 years of my life, right? Look at all the investments I made in education. I have 16 years of university education, and they framed me. It's 3 years, and I haven't been able to work. That's why I do these videos. That okay, at least I have the knowledge. Let me share my knowledge and feel fulfilled by teaching people the law. Again, it's not legal advice. Teaching people the law. It's incidental that I'm teaching that, and history, U.S. history about American presidents, and you know, just share my knowledge. And people can learn for a way for Nigerians. Maybe if they see someone like me, it will inspire them that there are other ways that they can learn in Nigeria as well. And for those that are here, so we built a community in America, right? There are Nigerian Americans that have a community, and in America. But I fear that community is challenged, right? It's under siege, and we have to be very careful. So that's another way another place where I see I can be irrelevant, because I'm American. They're Nigerian Americans who are here as well, and their attacks. Normally you see that we don't go into politics in America. Like you'll notice that Ilhan Omar, she's an immigrant. She's from Somali. There's another East African congressman, Joe Negus. I like him. He's very clever. He's a lawyer. He's a young man. He's very clever. So, but you don't see any Nigerian in Congress. You don't see, despite our success, you don't see them in politics. So, yeah. Let me stop this video here, and I'll continue in a third. My name is Dorado. Osha. I'll keep you posted. Thank you.